Why don't you just go away? My stepdaughter shouted during an argument. Her mum agreed, saying, we'd be better off without you. I didn't reply. I just packed my things. This morning, my phone went crazy with 13 missed calls. Something felt wrong as soon as I entered our living room that Sunday morning. The house was really quiet, but that wasn't all. I looked around the room, trying to see what was off. Then I noticed all our family pictures looked different. I walked closer to the big frame above the fireplace, the one from our trip to Yellowstone last summer. The photo was there, but I wasn't in it. Every picture of me had been carefully taken out, leaving empty spaces in our family moments from the last 3 years. I stood there, my coffee getting cold in my hand, when I heard Stella's door close gently upstairs. My stepdaughter's footsteps stopped at the top of the stairs. She must have noticed I was awake. After a moment, she came down, looking at her phone and not making eye contact as she walked to the kitchen. Morning, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. The quiet that followed felt heavy. 3 years. That's how long I'd been in Stella's life. 3 years of building trust, having movie nights and helping with homework, trying to be there without being too pushy. But now, at 16, she was pulling away. I thought it was normal teenage behavior, but this felt different. It all started last week when I offered to help her with her chemistry project. She had been struggling, and I thought it would help. Though it really didn't matter what I thought, her response hit me hard. Stop pretending you care about my grades. You're not my real dad. I had heard similar things before, but her tone felt sharper this time. Delilah, my wife, was in the kitchen and must have heard, but she didn't say anything. That silence felt like taking sides. The tension grew during the week, with small things. Dishes left in the sink, with pointed looks, doors slamming a little too hard, and conversations stopping when I walked into a room. Delilah became distant too, avoiding my questions about what was happening. She's just being a teenager, Thomas. Don't make it about you, she said. But everything blew up last night. Stella was texting during dinner, which went against our usual rules. When I gently reminded her, she threw her phone down. God, why are you always making rules for me? Why can't you just leave me alone? Stella, I started. I'm just trying to what, be my dad? I already have one. She stood up, her chair scraping the floor. Why don't you just disappear? No one asked you to try so hard. It's sad. I looked at Delilah, expecting support or help. But she put down her fork and quietly said, maybe we'd all be better off if you did. Those words hung in the air. 3 years of memories flashed through my mind. The day Stella first laughed at one of my dad jokes. The night she called me crying when her first boyfriend broke up with her. And the proud smile Delilah gave me when Stella asked me, not her mom, to help her pick out her prom dress. I stood up slowly, my dinner only half eaten. Okay, I said simply. Okay what? Stella challenged. But I saw a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. If that's how you both feel, okay. I walked upstairs to our bedroom and got my old duffel bag. I could hear them whispering downstairs, but no one came up. As I packed enough clothes for a few days, I noticed my hands weren't shaking. I felt strangely calm. When I came back down, Stella was gone, probably to her room. Delilah stood in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed. So you're just leaving? Is that your solution? You said we'd be better off, I replied, checking for my keys and wallet. I'm respecting that. That's not... I didn't mean to interrupt her, but she stopped, holding back her feelings. I picked up my bag. I'll be at Ryan's. I'll figure out something more permanent soon. I paused at the door. You know, when Stella said those things earlier, it hurt. But hearing you agree, that broke something in me, Del. I drove to Ryan's place in silence. He took one look at me and set up his guest room without asking. Questions. That's the kind of friend he is. I turned off my phone and took a sleeping pill from my travel kit. This morning, I woke up to sunlight coming through unfamiliar curtains. When I finally turned on my phone, it blew up with notifications. 13 missed calls, 8 from Delilah, 3 from Stella, 2 from my sister Quinn, 27 text messages, and 4 voicemails. I haven't listened to them yet. I'm sitting here in Ryan's guest room, watching the morning traffic below, thinking about those empty spaces in our family photos. Maybe they were always there, and I just didn't want to see them. My phone buzzed again. It was Stella. After everything that happened, I stared at her name on the screen, wondering what could be so urgent now. But I'm not ready, not yet. Sometimes the hardest part isn't leaving. It's knowing if you should go back. Update 1. First, thank you all for the kind comments on my last post. I didn't expect such a big response. To answer the most common questions, yes, I've read the messages. No, I haven't replied to any of them yet. And yes, I'm still at Ryan's. This morning started like the others, me pretending to work, while really staring at my phone, wondering if I should break the silence. Then Ryan dropped a bomb over breakfast. "Miles is back in town," he said, sliding his phone across the table. There on Facebook was a photo of Stella's biological father at a local restaurant. 2 weeks ago, the same. Miles, who hasn't paid child support in 3 years. The same Miles who missed Stella's last 4 birthdays. Suddenly, everything made sense. I scrolled through my texts again. Delilah's messages changed from angry, "Really mature, Thomas," running away, instead of talking, to concerned, "Please just let us know you're okay," to more complicated. Her latest message said, "There's something you need to know. It's Stella. Please call." Quinn showed up around lunch, bringing coffee and that serious look she gets when she's about to meddle in my life. "You look awful," she said, dropping onto Ryan's couch. "Thanks, always nice to see you too, sis." She didn't smile. "I ran into Stella at the mall yesterday. That caught my attention." "How is she?" "Meeting Miles for coffee." "She didn't notice me." Quinn watched my reaction closely. She seemed hopeful. You know that look she gets when she's trying not to get too excited? I understood exactly what she meant. It was the same look Stella had when she got accepted to that summer program last year. Like she was afraid to believe something good was actually happening. "Did you know Miles has been messaging her for months?" Quinn continued, promising to make things right this time. My stomach twisted. I checked Stella's Instagram, something I don't usually do. Her latest post was a picture of her and Miles, captioned, "Real family time." The comments were filled with heart emojis from her friends, none of whom knew the backstory. Ryan, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. "Remember what happened last time he showed up, when Stella was 13? I remembered. Miles came back with big promises, stayed for 2 weeks, then disappeared again. Stella didn't get out of bed for days afterward. Delilah and I spent months helping her trust again, making sure she knew she was enough and deserved better. Just then, my phone lit up with a text from Delilah. He asked her for money. She's actually thinking about it? Please, Thomas, I know you're mad at me, but she needs you. I started typing several replies, then deleted them. What could I say? Sorry, you told me to go away, but now you want me back? The whole situation felt like a cruel joke. Then came another notification. Stella's new Instagram story. A picture of college brochures on her bed with the caption, "Big changes are coming. Sometimes you have to choose your real path." Those were Miles's exact words from 3 years ago, right before he moved away and stopped answering Stella's calls. Quinn must have seen something in my face. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking about the day I married Delilah," I said slowly. "Remember what Stella said in her speech? How sometimes family finds you when you're not looking for it. And now she's posting about her real family and her real path while Miles acts like the perfect dad. He's got her convinced." I stopped as my phone rang. Unknown number. "Thomas, this is Miss Anderson from Riverside High. I'm Stella's guidance counselor. I know this is unusual, but I need to talk to you about some concerning changes in Stella's school plans and behavior. Could you come in tomorrow morning?" I agreed to the meeting, my mind racing. Stella had been getting straight A's since freshman year, determined to attend a good college. What could have changed? After I hung up, Quinn and Ryan watched me expectantly. "So?" Quinn asked. "I think it's time to stop being quiet." I picked up my phone and finally opened the voicemail from Stella. Her voice sounded small, not like her usual confident self. "I know you probably hate me now, and I understand. I need to tell you something about why I said those things about Miles. Please call me back." There was something in her voice that reminded me of the 13-year-old girl who used to check the mailbox every day, hoping for a letter that never came. "I'm meeting with the guidance counselor tomorrow at 9. After that, I think it's time for some honest conversations, because sometimes disappearing helps you see things more clearly from a distance." The school's number is still on my screen. Next to it is a text notification from Miles to our family group chat, which I'm still part of. "Great news. Big announcement at dinner tomorrow night." I have a feeling I know what that announcement will be, and I won't let history happen again. Update 2. I've spent the last hour trying to figure out how to write this update. The meeting with Miss Anderson revealed things I didn't expect. And what happened next? Well, let me start from the beginning. I arrived at Riverside High early, watching students rush to class. A few of Stella's classmates recognized me. Their quick glances and whispers showed me that rumors were already spreading about my absence. Miss Anderson didn't waste any time. Once I sat down, she said, "Stella submitted paperwork to leave her advanced placement classes yesterday," sliding a form across her desk. "She's also quitting French club and student council." When I asked why, she said she's transferring schools next semester. My chest tightened. These were the programs Stella had fought to get into extracurriculars she was counting on for college applications. "There's more," Miss Anderson continued. Last week, she asked me to send her transcripts to 3 different schools, all in California. She paused, watching me closely. The same city where Miles recently bought property. That's when the pieces began to fit together. I pulled out my phone and showed her Miles's big announcement text. Let me guess, he's starting a new business out there. She nodded. Stella mentioned something about a startup. She said her father needs family investors to help it get started. The sick feeling returned, the same one I had 3 years ago when Miles convinced Delilah to lend him money for a sure-thing business. Money we never saw again. I left the school and drove straight to our house. Delilah's car was in the driveway, and through the window, I saw her pacing in the kitchen with her phone to her ear. She spotted me and rushed to open the door before I could knock. He asked her for money, she said right away. Her college fund. He's been filling her head with promises about this tech startup, saying if she invests now, she'll make enough for any college she wants. Where is she? Coffee with Miles again. Delilah's voice cracked. I tried to tell her it was a scam, but she accused me of being jealous that he was finally stepping up. She said at least he believes in her dreams. I sat at the kitchen counter, the same spot where everything fell apart a week ago. Why didn't you tell me he was back? I tried to handle it myself. I thought if I kept them apart. She shook her head. Then you and Stella had that fight, and she said those things, and I panicked. I sided with her because I was scared she'd choose him completely. Before I could reply, the front door opened. Stella walked in, freezing when she saw me. She looked different, her makeup done nicely, and wearing an expensive jacket that Miles must have bought her, but her eyes were red. What are you doing here? She asked, but her usual edge was gone. Dropping your AP classes? Really? I kept my tone gentle. What happened to Stanford? Plans changed, she mumbled, not looking at me. Dad says... Miles says, I corrected quietly. Something flickered in her eyes. He has connections out there. The startup is guaranteed to, like the classic car dealership was guaranteed, or the food truck franchise. I pulled out my laptop and opened the documents I'd gathered that morning. Want to see Miles's business registration status, or his credit report, or maybe the 3 pending lawsuits from his last investment opportunity. Stella's hands shook as she took the laptop. With each click, her careful facade cracked a little more. When she reached the lawsuit from his previous stepdaughter's grandmother, trying to get back college funds he borrowed, the first tear fell. He said, she swallowed hard. He said he's changed, that he wants to make up for lost time, that we could be a real family if... She stopped and looked up at me. He said I had to prove I was choosing him, that you were the reason he stayed away, because you took his place. Oh, sweetie. Delilah moved toward her, but Stella stepped back. I knew, she whispered. Deep down, I think I knew. But I wanted to believe. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Miles. She stared at it for a long moment before turning it off completely. I have to go, she said quickly, heading for the stairs. I need to think. We let her go. Sometimes giving space is the kindest thing you can do. Hours went by. Delilah and I talked, really talked, for the first time, in weeks about fears and mistakes, about Stella and Miles, about us. Around midnight, I was getting ready to head back to Ryan's when my phone lit up with a text from Stella. I messed up. Everything's messed up. Can we talk? I mean really talk, not about Miles or money or anything. Just remember when we used to get ice cream after my dance classes. And you'd let me complain about school drama. Could we maybe do that? I know I don't deserve it. I'm typing this from the car parked outside our local ice cream place. It's closed, but the owner knows us. We've been coming here for 3 years. He's staying open late just for us. Stella just pulled up in her mum's car. She's sitting there, probably working up the courage to come in, just like I am. Sometimes, the hardest conversations start with the smallest steps, or in this case, with mint chocolate chip ice cream at midnight. Final update. That night at the ice cream shop changed everything. Stella talked for hours about how Miles had been manipulating her, her fears and her guilt. But what caught my attention was something she mentioned. Miles had been asking her to convince her friends, parents to invest in his startup too. Something clicked. I remembered the lawsuits I had found, the pattern of targeting families through their kids. The anger I had been holding in finally had a purpose. You know, I said carefully, what he's doing isn't just morally wrong. It's illegal. Stella looked up from her melting ice cream. What do you mean? I explained about fraud and running illegal investment schemes. Her eyes widened as she showed me group chats where Miles had been asking minors to invest. That night, after dropping Stella home, I made some calls. Quinn has a friend at the SEC. Ryan knows someone in the DA's office. By morning, I had a plan. Miles didn't see it coming. He was too focused on his big announcement dinner, where he planned to convince Stella to sign over her college fund. He even invited some of her friends' parents, more potential targets. The dinner was at an expensive restaurant. Miles was in his element, talking about connections in Silicon Valley and guaranteed returns. I waited until the appetizers arrived before standing up. "Before we continue," I said, "there are some people who'd like to join us." 2 federal agents and a state investigator walked in. Miles's face went from confident to confused to terrified in seconds. It turned out Miles wasn't just running one scam. The investigators found 7 different fraudulent schemes across 3 states. Every time he reconnected with Stella over the years, he had been finding new victims. The classic car dealership that took. Delilah's savings was part of a bigger fraud scheme. The food truck franchise had the same pattern. But here's the good part. He had gotten careless this time, documenting everything in texts and emails to Stella, thinking she would never tell on him. When she forwarded those messages to the investigators, his fate was sealed. The parents at the dinner were wearing wires. Every promise, every lie, and every illegal investment pitch was recorded. Miles tried to run, knocking over a waiter and sprinting for the door. He made it 3 steps before security stopped him. As they led him away, he looked at Stella with that sad puppy dog face she had fallen for so many times. "Sweetie, this is all a misunderstanding. Tell them I'm your father." Stella stood up, shoulders back. "My father is right here," she said, holding my hand, "and he just watched you get what you deserve." The aftermath was big. News coverage, victim statements, and more families coming forward. The investigators found over $2.3 million in stolen money. Miles is looking at 15 to 20 years in prison. His startup was fake, just a website and some stolen photos of a real tech company's office. But the real victory wasn't seeing Miles get arrested. It was the small moments that happened after. Stella put all her pictures with Miles in a box and donated it as evidence, she called it, with a hint of her old smile. She reapplied for her AP classes, and the school was understanding given the situation. Instead of being angry, her friends' parents formed a support group for families affected by similar scams. Something good came from something bad. Last night, Stella asked me to help her with her college essays. "I have a pretty unique story now," she said. "How many people can write about taking down their biological father's fraud scheme? Delilah and I are in counseling. There's trust to rebuild and wounds to heal." But watching her put those photos of me back in the family albums, carefully arranging, each one said more than words could. This morning, Stella came down for breakfast early. She had an envelope with her. "I found this in my room," she said, sliding it across the table. "Miles asked me to mail it last week. It's investment paperwork for his startup. I thought you might want to add it to the evidence." I looked at the envelope and then at her. "Want to deliver it to the investigators together." She gave me a real happy smile that I had missed. "Can we get ice cream afterward?" Some people might say the revenge was too harsh. That family is family no matter what. But real family doesn't try to steal your future. Real family protects you, even if that means protecting you from other family. Miles's sentencing is next month. Stella plans to read a victim impact statement. She has been working on it for weeks, carefully revising each word. Yesterday, she asked me to look it over. "It needs a good ending," she said. "Something that shows I'm not just his victim anymore." I think she has already found that ending. It's in the way she holds her head high now and how she is helping other kids spot similar scams in the college. Brochures back on her desk. Her real path. Not the one Miles tried to sell her. Sometimes moving forward means making sure the person can't hurt anyone else. And sometimes the best revenge is not just watching someone face consequences. It's thriving despite them. We're having a family dinner tonight, just the 3 of us. Stella is making her famous pasta sauce. The one she learned from watching cooking videos with me during lockdown. Normal, boring, wonderful family stuff, the kind of stuff Miles will have plenty of time to think about from his cell. If you enjoyed this Reddit story and want to hear more, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more thrilling content. Your support means a lot. Thank you for being part of this journey.